Rick Branos for the Coach Speak Index. Yo, what is up? What's going on? Milestone week. My goodness, guys. This is maybe the biggest personal week of my life. Incredible things. Incredible things. Incredible thing happening. I finally spelled Isaiah Pacheco's name correctly without looking it up. I did it. We have summited the Isaiah mountaintop. Been so good for so long at spelling all the different Jonathan names without ever having to look them up. And now, folks, I think we're getting there on Isaiah's. Isaiah Likely, got that one down. Isaiah Pacheco had been getting me for quite a while. I have defeated you, Isaiah. Not the person, just the kind of like concept of spelling a name. I don't know if that's a concept. But feeling good. Feeling great. You know who else is feeling great? All the people who are playing Dog Bowl on Underdog Fantasy. All those people who have qualified to go to Dallas. There are only 2 weeks left to qualify for the Dog Bowl. 3 people qualify every week, each of them getting $10,000 and a ticket to the Dog Bowl in Dallas, where $1 million in prizes will be won, and first place gets $200,000, and they get to say that they won the 2024 Dog Bowl. It's a big deal winning these big tournaments. We've seen it propel many people in the fantasy space to prominence, shall we say? Prominent, that'll work. Prominence. And I mean, what a feeling. Get a trip to Dallas. Already got that 10 bones in your pocket. Win another $200,000. Become a champion. Buy yourself a big cowboy hat. Walk around Dallas like this. Woo! Big dog style. Sign up on Underdog with promo code COACHSPEAK, and you can claim a first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash, plus a free pick. See y'all in Dallas. Before we get to our clips, we will do our usual here of just running through some injuries. Chiefs head coach Andy Reid stated that Juju Smith-Schuster, Isaiah Pacheco, ISIAH, and Charles Omenihu are all very close to returning. Reid said, I think they're all close. I would probably tell you Juju closer than the other two. They're very close, all 3 of them. And Andy Reid has a 65% reliability rating on injury coach speak. Not a great reliability rating in that danger zone there that we talk about. Minnesota head coach Kevin O'Connell called Aaron Jones day-to-day with his ribs injury. And KOC said that he is, quote, feeling really good about having him for this week, end quote. Kevin O'Connell has a 90% reliability rating on injury coach speak. I expect Aaron Jones to play this week. Lions head coach Dan Campbell said about Sam Laporta, quote, it'll be day to day. We don't feel like this is something like, oh man, this is going to be a long nagging injury. I think we'll get through it. I'm hopeful this week, but I can't say that. He's questionable. That sounded weird with the I'm hopeful this week, but I can't say that. The I can't say that was about whether Sam Laporta will be available this week. So he's kind of unsure there, but he does feel good that it's not a long injury. He called him day to day. So for us at the Coach Speak Index, for our database, the clock is ticking on that injury Coach Speak. When they're called day to day, this is how it works for the grading. When they're called day to day, if they play this next game, if it's a game this week, they play that game, then yeah, boom, that's a check for the coach. If they miss this game, but they come back the next game, right? That is a gray area because day to day it could be, yeah, they were fine for 6 or 7 days or so, or they weren't able to make it through that like 6 or 7 days, but they're in practice the next week. They end up playing that game, but if they miss 2 games there, right? If we go into something that where the coach should have said like, oh, this is actually week to week, then we give them a strike there. That was a lengthy explanation, but I'm not sure that I have explained that before. Just in general, blasting it out. Some people have reached out about grading and that kind of stuff. Okay. Bottom line, Dan Campbell, 90% reliability rating on Injury Coach Speak. I expect Sam Laporta to return by week 12 with a chance to play this week. I don't think it's going to happen this week, though. Just kind of the way that Dan Campbell's talking about it of, he's hopeful, but he can't say. Now, it is earlier in the week. Maybe we get something on Friday where he says, hey, he's feeling really good. I think he's got a chance to go. That would be cool to hear. But the Detroit Lions are at home. They are 2 touchdown favorites over the spiraling Jacksonville Jaguars. Detroit really doesn't need Sam Laporta for this game. Probably be wiser to hold him out, but we'll see. And we'll expect Laporta by week 12. Speaking of the Jaguars head coach Doug Peterson was asked whether Trevor Lawrence, who is dealing with a shoulder injury, whether Lawrence will be ready to go after the Jags week 12 bye. Peterson said, quote, "It's still a question mark, but I'm optimistic," end quote. Doug Peterson has a 50% reliability rating on Injury Coach Speak. Okie dokie. Have something here, but that is not about injuries. That is about a running back. We'll get to that later. Why don't we start it off with quarterbacks? Just one quarterback to talk about here. This is not a clip. This is just something from the Discord, and just got a notification that Sam Laporta not participating in practice on Thursday. So again, it might not happen this week. Yeah, the Indianapolis Colts, as you might have heard yesterday, November 13th, announced via Shane Steichen that we're going back to Anthony Richardson. Snip, snap, snip, snap. Originally, several weeks ago, Anthony Richardson is our quarterback when healthy, as Shane Steichen said. And then after the tap out game, they benched him. They said it wasn't about the tap out. They said Joe Flacco gives us the best chance to win. And then they lost a couple games. And they were asked, why are you sticking with Joe Flacco? And Shane Steichen said, because of veteran leadership. That's why he gives us the best chance to win. He's been in the league for decades. And then yesterday turned course once again, and Shane Steichen said that Anthony Richardson, he's our QB for the remainder of the season. Can we believe that? No. He has I believe 60%, but low sample size reliability rating on depth chart Coach Speak that is not yet factored in these 2 strikes that he's gotten, or I believe one is factored in. The latest is not factored in yet. That will be factored in this week. It's low. It's a low reliability rating on depth chart. Coach speak. But just want to point out a few things about what Steichen said in this presser on Wednesday, which is about 2.5 times as long as a regular Shane Steichen presser. And of course, the majority of questions were about QB1. And, people were really curious what exactly happened here. Why was he benched? Was it performance? Was it the tap out? Also, really funny, by the way, that Shane Steichen, when he originally benched Anthony Richardson, said this is not a 1 week benching. Because there was the Jeff Saturday comments, and then people were asking, is this just a 1 week thing? Teach him a lesson for the tap out, whatever. He said, no, this is not a 1 week benching. Joe Flacco, he's our guy for the rest of the season. And he ended up being technically right on that. It was not a 1 week benching. It was a 2 week benching. So good job, Shane. From this press conference, Shane Steichen reveals the reasoning behind the benching, saying, I've talked about the process, about Anthony Richardson for a long time. And what I've meant by that is the attention to detail in everything he does, from the classrooms to the walkthroughs to practice to the weight room. All those little things, it's just got to be at a higher standard. That was discussed with him 2 weeks ago. He's made big time strides in those areas the last couple weeks. Says he's going to start the rest of the season. We feel that he is our franchise quarterback. And this quote, again, which kind of goes back to what we just said about the process and what Steichen said earlier about the process. Quote, when I talk about the details, it's the constant grind in the meetings with the note-taking. It's the walkthrough, laser focus all the time, just being consistent. It's consistent in the process to being the best version of yourself, end quote. He was asked, well, when did Anthony Richardson kind of start slipping up in these areas? And Steichen said, I don't know the timetable of that. Little weird. Maybe he does. He just didn't want to say, but you're benching a guy for this. You should know kind of when it happened. But Richardson is in. Also, very, very funny moment, because we got all of these quotes of, in previous press conferences of Joe Flacco. He gives us the best chance to win. So, of course, by the way, Colts beat writers doing an excellent job, and James Boyd in particular really pressing Shane Steichen on a lot of these inconsistencies and things that he's saying. We don't see that from a ton of beat reporters, and some of the reason is they know they're not really allowed to ask confrontational questions. But hats off to James Boyd. And somebody asked him, it may have been James Boyd, but somebody asked Steichen whether he thinks that Anthony Richardson gives the Colts the best chance to win. Steichen said, yeah, I think whoever's out there gives us the best chance to win, end quote, and said that, all the guys that they put out there give them the best chance to win. So that's the deal there as far as fantasy fallout. Not as great for Josh Downs and Michael Pittman and all that more intermediate and short passing game stuff. Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell, maybe a little boost up there because of how much Richardson likes to throw it deep. We've seen it several times with Alec Pierce, and we've seen attempts with A.D. Mitchell, but not quite being on the same page and getting the ball there to him. And Richardson himself, I mean, we do have this benching possibility, if he comes back, plays poorly for a couple games, even though Steichen has said that he's the QB for the rest of the season. We know that we can't really trust that. But, man, if this is the real reason, his, not being focused or locked in or whatever. I mean, this is his second season, first fullish season so far. I feel like that's a coaching thing. I feel like your guys should be along for the ride the entire time with you, unless they're just kind of not believing in you anymore. But they need to see what they have in Anthony Richardson. I know it hurts the Josh Downs bags a little bit, potentially. But it helps the Colts' chance to win. It's going to help Jonathan Taylor a little bit. I think they'll score more points. And I don't think Richardson was as bad as, definitely not as bad as the box score. Kind of like a Will Levis type thing, where if you're watching the games, it's okay, playing pretty well. Some very bad missteps here and there, but would have looked a lot different if his receivers had been helping him out in that last game with Anthony Richardson. Not saying he's a great quarterback right now, but it helps when guys are catching the ball that moves the sticks and gets a rhythm going. And we will see if the Colts can get Anthony Richardson going. Oh, fingers crossed, man. He is an incredible athlete. And we have seen some good touch with him on the deep passes. Just needs a lot more work. This isn't Trey Lance bad. There is real potential with Anthony Richardson. Just need the right folks there with him. Not sure if it's Shane Steichen and Jim Bob Cooter. But, all right, moving on. Running backs. Let us head to Carolina. This is offensive coordinator Brad Idzik talking about that backfield.
Yeah, Coach, back to Chuba, I agree. It's a good move. It's when you talk about using him now with Jonathan Brooks, how do you foresee that working now that it looks like Jonathan may be ready to go this week?
Yeah, I think we've dealt with this kind of the whole year with Chuba. Like he's gotten our lion's share so far, but the more extended drives we get to couple all of our guys in there, trying to find ways to get Miles the ball, trying to find ways to get Jonathan the ball as he gets more comfortable, with the speed of the game and just introducing him to the NFL world. Jonathan can do a little bit of everything, as really all three of those guys that I mentioned can. They've done a phenomenal job, so we don't see any drop off in like scheme and stuff that we're calling. We just see another good back that we can have into the fold, and Chuba's just doing a great job of leading the charge, showing how how to finish runs, how to Early in the year, he was really aggressive on his cuts, and you see him playing underneath himself a lot more with like the zone running. It's fun to watch that progression too. So those guys, especially Jonathan being a rookie, being able to watch that, from the sideline, unfortunately, he's getting to see a progression of a guy who's, doing it week in and week out and continuing to take steps himself. So just excited for him to put that learning to the field.
With Hubbard extended and Brooks set to debut, where does Miles stand now? Is he still the third down back, or is he now considered the RB3?
No, I don't think we hard put names on. Obviously, Chuba's been taking a a fair share of the carries, but we don't put hard numbers on guys. We just want to get a good chance for them to all, touch the ball. They all have their own, their talents, and Miles has done a great job in their first and second down running game as well. But we're just really excited for, all the route running that he's done. He's done a great job of getting open on the perimeter. So it's just an added piece that he has for us to continue to carve out niches for all of them. They all have value in our offense, and I just don't like to throw them into boxes of saying 1, 2, and 3. There's the elephant in the room being that Chuba's, kind of taking that workload. But with that, you need to spell him too, and we're blessed to have 2 other guys that are really good runners behind him. And then Raheem too, like he's a guy, early in camp who got plenty of carries there. Mike Boone, like guys that have all toted the rock. Even if we were to call any of them up active or find ways to get Raheem the ball too, they've all shown their ability to run it. It's just the name of the game when you're trying to get a certain guy a good amount of carries, and then you're trying to space out the rest of them between the others.
Man, pretty bullish for Chuba Hubbard there. The elephant in the room being that Chuba is kind of taking that workload. But with that, you need to spell him too, and we're blessed to have 2 other guys that are really good runners behind him. And Chuba Hubbard, we know, got this big extension from the Panthers. Not big as in like a massive amount of money, but a really healthy commitment, at least for the first couple years of the contract. And then a day after Idzik says this, Dave Canales says this on Chuba Hubbard. Quote, "We talk about our play style, great effort, great enthusiasm, great toughness, playing smart and finish. I don't think there's a guy on our team that exemplifies those things more than Chuba. So we're really excited to have him here for a while." And if you watched Dave Canales throughout the offseason talk about what style of team he wants to be, the whole, I want to show you how stubborn I can be about running the ball. And then I believe it was at the owners meeting, maybe it was the combine, but I think it was the owners meeting where at the time, before the draft, they have Miles Sanders, they have Chuba Hubbard, and they ask, how's this backfield going to shake out? Who's getting the rock? He said, whoever runs the angriest, whoever is the hungriest and wants it the most. And that has been the style of play that we have seen from Chuba Hubbard. So when a coach points to a player and says, this player is who we want to be about. This player embodies what we want this team to be, our ultimate goal and vision for this team. That's it right over there. That's really big. So arrows way the hell up for Chuba Hubbard. Jonathan Brooks, super talented, has not played a snap in the NFL yet. Coming back from this injury, it's been a very long time. Not many weeks left in the fantasy season. Maybe he comes out, and now, with Miles Sanders being banged up, maybe we see after this Week 11 bye, see the Panthers in Week 12 and see some touches for Jonathan Brooks, and maybe it's like riding a bicycle. Maybe just they held him out all this extra time. And Canales has talked about, hey, the reason we've been holding him out for this long, it's more mental than anything, more than physical. It's the mental stuff. We know how we want him to look physically, and also we don't want any hesitation mentally. We expected him back much sooner. And Canales and during training camp said, hey, week 3, week 4, that'd be great. Making us think, yeah, maybe he won't even go on PUP to start the season. But they've held him out. They've been very judicious about this process. And you would think with that extra time, because there's the whole thing of a guy comes back from injury and some teams will kind of rush them back, or as soon as they're at 85%. Okay, good enough to go out on the field, low enough re-injury risk, and then some teams are super careful, right? We see this with the Vikings. They're super careful. And then when their guys come back, then they're really not far off from just being able to be kind of a full go. We saw that with Justin Jefferson last year. Saw them slow play it a little bit the first week with TJ Hawkinson, but, very productive this past week, played a lot of snaps. So maybe by the time Jonathan Brooks hits the field, he's just ready to go, right? Ready to hit the ground running, and that's why they've been holding him out so long, so he's able to hit the ground running when they play him. But, again, has not played a snap in the NFL and doesn't have many weeks left to make an impact in fantasy football. Looking more like a 2025 play, but even then, they still have Chuba Hubbard. So is this a Detroit Lions type backfield where invest all this money in the offensive line, build this identity of we want to run the ball down your throats, and then have a couple of guys that can attack you in different ways, right? You have this angry runner in Chuba Hubbard, and then you have this really super talented all-around back in Jonathan Brooks, who they've talked about, wanting to use him in the pass game as well, because he's very adept in that phase. Not completely terrible for Jonathan Brooks, but not what we expected whatsoever. Next is the New York Giants. This is before their Week 10 game in Germany. This is head coach Brian Daboll on rookie running back Tyrone Tracy Jr.
And then there was a question to your rookie, Tyrone Tracy. It
Yes.
looks like you found an absolute stud in the 5th round. And was there a specific moment in training camp or in a game where you realized that you found a good player?
Well, I think when we drafted him and got to meet the young man, he did everything we asked him to do. And then as he got more opportunities, much like Aziz, the question was asked about Aziz, he took advantage of them and he produced. And he's continued to make the most of his opportunity. He's smart. He's got good toughness. He understands the game. And ultimately, he's gone out there and produced on Sunday when we handed him the ball or in pass protection or in the routes. He's done a nice job with that.
So he will continue to get the first team reps.
Yeah, he'll get a lot of reps for us, and the other running backs we'll use all of them, but he'll be a primary guy for us.
So this is actually the first time that Brian Daboll publicly acknowledged Tyrone Tracy is our primary guy. He'll be a primary guy for us. He's our RB1, which we have seen already play out. But, pretty big for the head coach to come out and state that for the first time here. So that was before the Week 10 game. In that game, Tyrone Tracy playing really well. Rips off really big touchdown run. Game ends up going to overtime. Giants get the ball first. On the very first snap, Tyrone Tracy Jr. fumbles the ball on a carry. And the Panthers recover it, and they end up kicking a field goal and winning the game. Not ideal when you are, secured this spot, right? But they had just secured this RB1 spot. Crucial fumble in overtime that, it's not like the Giants were going to make the playoffs anyway, but that really kind of put the nail in the coffin, and we're headed in a different direction now. The Giants are talking about when they return from bye that, they don't know who their quarterback is going to be. We know about this. I think it's about $23 million that the Giants would be on the hook for if Daniel Jones plays and gets injured this season, and that carries through to next season. They'd be on the hook for that. As it is right now, if he's healthy, they can part ways at the end of the season, and they know that he is not their guy anymore. This was the year that he needed to prove, okay, yeah, Daniel Jones is the dude. He's not it. So be smarter to sit him, and that's all the stuff that they're dealing with now. And this one play kind of brought it all to this point. So how does Daboll feel about Tyrone Tracy after the fumble? And November 11th, this is what Brian Daboll had to say. Quote, he said, Tyrone Tracy Jr., quote, really gives everything he has and cares a lot about his team and about his role on his team, and he's done a nice job for us. It was unfortunate at the end with the fumble, but he's a young man that will bounce back. He's got the right attitude, been a productive player in recent weeks for us. I've got a lot of confidence in him, end quote. So, costly fumble. Yes, I don't think it's something that is going to relegate him to the bench, but does put him on some thinner ice than he was on, of course. He wasn't on thin ice. He wasn't on thin ice. The ice thinned out a little bit. He's on a little bit thinner ice now. Not super thin, but if he's to fumble again in this next game, coming back from the bye, then becomes much hairier. You know how fumbles work. You know how all that stuff works, guys. All right. Baltimore Ravens. This is head coach John Harbaugh on what the backfield will look like with running back Keaton Mitchell healthy again.
Keaton Mitchell obviously came back. Two things? Do you anticipate, continuing to use him in that kickoff role, and what did you see from him, outside the obvious? He looked pretty fast.
Yeah, Keaton's a really good football player, so he'll in that role as a running back, it's got some special teams elements to it for sure. And I like the ball in his hands, so have him back there in kickoff return. I'm sure he'll be on some other phases, but really start working him into the offense as well. That definitely, I do see a little bit of a three-headed monster there potentially, and we'll see where that goes over the next course of the games, and hopefully that's something that can start to develop for us.
A lot of the headlines that came out of this press conference said, three-headed monster in Baltimore. That's not exactly the sentiment expressed here. That three-headed monster language, bit tentative, vaguely committal. So John Harbaugh isn't quite signaling a running back by committee backfield, but it does sound like he wants to use all three backs. We know how much they like Justice Hill. We saw the explosion that Keaton Mitchell provided them last year in the run game. And, that the explosive nature of Keaton Mitchell was on full display last year. John Harbaugh has a 60% reliability rating on depth chart coach speak and an 85% reliability rating on usage and workload coach speak. I expect the Ravens to start deploying Keaton Mitchell in the offense like Harbaugh mentions here. Don't see it being a ton of work. I mean, obviously Derrick Henry still the guy here, but I mean, they did really enjoy the kind of lightning that Mitchell provided them last season before he got hurt. This was his first game back, only played 2 offensive snaps. You know, as he returns from this injury, I think he sees more work, and not going to be really a startable guy unless something, I think, were to happen to Justice Hill or Derrick Henry, and kind of whittle that down to 2 people in that backfield. Not really even a like DFS, like weekly play. Maybe in a showdown, yeah, you could throw some Keaton Mitchell in there. Maybe he houses a big one and he's low owned, but don't think he will be playable in fantasy. All right. Let's talk about the title of the episode. It's in Denver. This is head coach Sean Payton talking about Audric Estime.
Coach, I know we asked you about Audric yesterday after the game, but after looking at the film, how did you think he handled the increased workload, and what did you think of the run game overall?
Yeah, I thought he ran well yesterday. I thought Mims, gave it some juice as well. Just trying to find different roles, different ways to utilize these players. But I was encouraged, and he'll continue to get more reps.
So Sean Payton had said coming into this game, we want to get Audric Estime involved. I want to see what we have in him. And Sean Payton, only a 50% reliability rating on usage and workload coach speak, has some pending strikes or some strikes looming on Marvin Mims Jr. and Jaleel McLaughlin, but appeared to tell the truth in this instance. Audric Estime in week 10 played on 45% of snaps. Javonte Williams, 29% of snaps. Jaleel McLaughlin, 12% of snaps. And the opportunities went this way. Audric Estime, 14. Javonte Williams, 3. Jaleel McLaughlin, 2. And that included a carry on the very first play of the game for McLaughlin. Marvin Mims, who Sean Payton mentions there, he had 3 rushing attempts, and that was the same number of attempts as Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin had combined. Pretty big swing in the direction of Audric Estime. And I want to tell you what I feel is the most significant part of this. It's that Audric Estime was on the field for Denver's final drive. When they were down 2 points, a few minutes left, they needed to drive down the field for a game-winning field goal. Wonder how that will turn out. But Audric Estime was in there, and he ran some routes. He's not really a third down back. And if you are in the Coach Speak Index Discord, you can see the progression of what Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator there, have said about Audric Estime throughout this season. And you know what? I will run through a couple of them here. Let's see. First, let me start with the post-game presser after this week 10. Sean Payton said, quote, we keep wanting to get him involved. He's a handful. And we saw that in the way that Audric Estime ran this past week. Really, really was a handful there. Looked better than Javonte Williams has looked this season, certainly. And then, of course, we get this quote from Peyton. He'll continue to get more reps. Again, Peyton, 50% reliability rating on usage and workload, coach speak. But going back to April 28th, this is right after the Denver Broncos drafted Audric Estime. Sean Payton said, quote, "The first vision would be first and second down runner." And then later says, "We'll kind of see how that unfolds, but he's strong. I think he has real good vision, contact balance," end quote. And then July 26th, this is, training camp season. Sean Payton, quote, "When the draft started, every once in a while, there's a player you'd say, when this thing's all over with, I'd love to have this player. And fortunately, we were able to get this player. He's smart, he's tough, and I like his size." Okay, this is big for a couple of reasons. One, we know how absolutely obsessed Sean Payton is with size. We hear this most of the time when it comes to wide receivers, right? Devon Vele, who's this guy? Who's this 38-year-old rookie out of BYU? He's a tall drink of water, and that's why he's on the Broncos. Lil Jordan Humphrey, not little, big dude. Fun, ironic name, but big guy. Sean Payton loves him. Josh Reynolds, bigger dude. Yes, Sean Payton guy. And what is also funny about Sean Payton saying this about Audric Estime, I like his size, is that he asked Javonte Williams to lose 10 pounds this past offseason to get down to his svelte North Carolina self that Sean Payton saw on tape. But it works for Estime. It doesn't work for Javonte Williams, but it does work for Audric Estime. He's a big dude who's just, I wouldn't say shot out of a cannon. I would say maybe like slapped hard on the ass and sent on his way. I think that works out. And yeah, pretty good vision there. Kind of fast to the holes this past week. Chiefs, not the easiest team to run on. And whether this was a hot hand situation here, because McLaughlin gets that first carry, Marvin Mims gets a couple carries. We don't actually see Audric Estime until later in the first quarter. But once he got running, you could tell that Sean Payton liked it. Maybe Sean Payton sees a little Mark Ingram in Audric Estime there. Another guy whose size Sean Payton loved. Will it stick? What will it look like when the Broncos are, trailing and in 2-minute mode? Again, they had decent enough time to move. I think they had the ball with 4+ minutes at the end of the game there for their drive, but really big that Estime is on the field because Javonte Williams was in for the 2-minute drive at the end of the first half. And end of the game on the line, Sean Payton has Audric Estime in there, a guy who's fumbled a couple times this year. Pretty big vote of confidence there. A good pickup on the waiver wire, yes. Is he a dude that's going to smash? I'm not sure about that. We're not getting the Sean Payton scam, PPR scam for running backs this year. Audric Estime isn't, really that type of running back anyway. feels like he needs to hit 100 yards or like 80 yards and a touchdown in order to have a good fantasy week. And does Sean Payton even stick with him? Probably be a good idea by how he looked on Sunday. But let's see if he can string it together. And maybe he becomes a workhorse there in Denver. That was running backs. Wide receivers. Got a couple here. And we will begin in Baltimore. Head coach John Harbaugh was asked about Deontay Johnson's workload.
With that, Deontay Johnson, it seems like his workload is starting to increase. Do you imagine this week kind of maybe looking a little more in terms of his workload, like what you expect it to be throughout the rest of the season?
Absolutely. See, same kind of conversation, and he's been here now for somewhat of a number of practices. I mean, last week wasn't. We only had one practice. That was really where he got a chance to move around, but I would expect that to ramp up, yes.
I would expect that to ramp up. Yes, this is kind of a layup here, and we do grade with context in mind. Deontay Johnson, his first game with the Ravens, played 17 snaps. This past game with the Ravens, played 5 snaps. So, yeah, kind of a layup that they are, that his workload will increase going forward. He's just getting there. He's just learning the system. We did have that report, may have mentioned this, but on an earlier show, but we had that report from Josina Anderson saying, after this Deontay Johnson trade that this is just about depth. He's going to be behind Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. And then we didn't get many questions from the beat writers about kind of the depth here and how Deontay Johnson plays into that. One person that I know speculated it's because they already know that Deontay Johnson is a depth piece, like Josina Anderson was saying. That would be pretty rough if he is, wide receiver 3 on the Ravens when you have Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. How much of this pie will Deontay Johnson get? And will he continue to be a problem in the locker room? Had that, he tweeted something out this past week after the game of there's always 2 sides to a story. And, oh boy, here we go again. No wonder Carolina traded him for virtually nothing. And when you look at what other wide receivers were fetching at the trade deadline, it's kind of eye-popping what Deontay Johnson got in return and what these other players got in return. So don't love that for Deontay Johnson bags, but he'll get on the field. Maybe he'll have some productive weeks. Maybe he'll have some spike weeks in best ball, but this doesn't seem like the best landing spot for him. One more wide receiver. Here is head coach of the Denver Broncos, once again, Sean Payton, talking about Marvin Mims Jr. and his use in the backfield this past week.
Sean, what did you like out of Marvin Mims, using him as a running back? And kind of, have you ever done that before with players?
Well, I think one of the things that we are tasked to do sometimes is like, are we missing anything from an attribute? When you watch him return, you see him put his foot in the ground and you see his speed. And so I went in, just talking to the offensive staff, let's come up with a tag that puts him, we've seen this before with different type of players, with whether it's been Debo or Cordell, and I'm not but he gives us a different speed element, and so there's certain running schemes that he would be very comfortable with, and then there's others that, and then the other thing, what's interesting is you send him in the game with two other receivers, a tight end, and a fullback, and you think like you're in base, but you're getting a nickel defense because they're looking at it as three receivers, a tight end, and Burton's playing halfback. So it was just creating a package that some weeks we can expand on. It was just trying to find ways to get him touches within the framework of what we do. I told him last week, you're not changing positions, but there are some things that I think that he can help us with, and we'll try to look at it weekly.
Okay, so just a weekly packages like he's talking about certain I would guess that we saw a little more Marvin Mims this week. We saw a season high 4 targets, incredible, and caught all 4 of them for 13 yards. I think a lot of this was kind of who they're playing, right? The Chiefs get at you real quick. Let's get the ball out real quick. Let's get it to, our yak guys. And I mean, he's been like pretty bad as a actual receiver, but he is talented with the ball in his hands. Makes guys miss, covers ground very quickly. And that's the reason why he is returning kicks for the Broncos. So kind of the same thing that we've seen with some other receivers. He mentions Deebo Samuel and Cordero Patterson there in the clip. He's not as close to Deebo Samuel as he is maybe to like Velus Jones, who the Bears tried out at running back because he wasn't a very good wide receiver, but again, good with the ball in his hands, a kick returner, has some real speed. And I think that's kind of what we saw here. I don't know if it'll be, it sounds like it's not going to be like a weekly basis thing. He's saying, hey, is kind of matchup based, right? Kind of week to week thing. We'll see what kind of packages that we have for him. So not counting on a Deebo Samuel role for Marvin Mims Jr. is very funny that Marvin Mims gets kind of his season high touches here. Really across the board, targets, catches, runs, that he gets it kind of in this game where Audric Estime is fulfilling the, what Sean Payton said about usage and workload coach speak. We're finally getting a Marvin Mims week. 7 opportunities for 30 yards. I mean, if you're playing full PPR, you got 7 points, which is a pretty good for Marvin Mims. Tight ends. We have one tight end here, and this is Tampa Bay offensive coordinator Liam Cohen on Cade Otton.
We keep talking a lot about Cade, and rightfully so, because of the 3 weeks that he's had.
Yeah.
He's a good player, but with this opportunity, do you see more of the route running in him?
Yeah.
That's really kind of like, okay, this guy.
He's got a knack for the game. Like, he just knows the game. He's got a great feel. There's so many of those guys that you just say that he's a football player, and that's Cade. And you can't say it about everybody. And he just has that ability. And sometimes people look at that as a knock. Well, maybe they're not as fast or as quick or as strong or can jump as high. Being a football player is a darn good thing. And that's what he is, and he's tough as nails. He's smart as heck, man. Like, I would love for my son to grow up to be Cade Otton. That's the kind of guy that he is.
And because of that, going forward, right, you're going to get Mike back.
Right.
You don't have Chris, but you're going to get guys back. So now you have a better understanding of all he can do, right?
That's right.
And not for nothing, but the guy plays every snap.
There's no question. I mean, he's out there every time. We try to get him a blow, but we're also we're getting him involved a lot more. It's a great thing for him, for me, for our offense to know, well, we got another guy we can rely on to make plays. He's gaining a ton of confidence. I don't know where he stands with his careers and where he's been at in normal years. I don't know, but I got to believe he's probably feeling pretty good about where he's at right now and in the way he's playing.
Cade Otton has been absolutely smashing as a result of Chris Godwin going down for the season. Mike Evans has been out with a hamstring. Jalen McMillan dealing with a hamstring. Not much going on with the other receivers. And when all of these injury disasters struck, we heard the Bucs talking about, well, we're going to have to kind of play this through the backfield and Cade Otton. And that is exactly what we have seen in these past 4 games. Cade Otton, 39 targets, 30 catches, 293 yards, 3 touchdowns. Pretty good there. They are really, really leaning on him. Once Mike Evans comes back, I imagine we're still going to see a lot of usage for Cade Otton. It's just going to be, all right, Cade Otton, the backfield, and Mike Evans. This should actually make things a little bit easier for Cade Otton, who we have seen them scheme a ton of stuff for him. Getting him in screens, just getting him very involved all over the field. And they like this kid a lot. If you're in the Discord, you have seen them gushing over Cade Otton. And then, we hear here from Liam Cohen, I would love for my son to grow up to be Cade Otton. Goodness gracious. Again, this is the kind of Chuba Hubbard thing, right? Of coach saying this guy right here, this is what we want our team to be about. This is what I want my son to be about. Goodness gracious. Got to be feeling good if you've got some Cade Otton this year. Okay. Let us blow through some stuff from the Discord here, but let us go over some stuff from the Discord and give it the proper time. How about that? Starting off, this is okay. So this first thing is not from the Discord, but want to give you some context for some of the things that are from the Discord, and then everything else is from the Discord. So very first thing, this is from NBC Sports Bay Area. Kyle Shanahan, before Christian McCaffrey returned in Week 10, said, quote, "We'll see how it goes with Christian. You don't just sit there and split everything up just to do it. You keep the people out there that gives you the best chance to win on each play. And Christian is just a little bit different because he does so much extra besides running the ball. He's such an elite player when it comes to running routes and things like that." So that was about, okay, well, what's this workload going to look like for Christian McCaffrey when he comes back? And I remember Shanahan being asked at the beginning of the season of, well, when Christian McCaffrey does come back, we just saw Jordan Mason play so well. Do you expect that maybe we'll see kind of a split there? Like, does that make you not want to like rush Christian McCaffrey back or like rush him back into a big workload? And Shanahan's just like, no, when we have Christian, we want him out there. So yeah, he brings an element to the field that these other running backs do not in terms of the passing game, like Shanahan is talking about here. And then also just at the goal line in the red zone, where we saw Jordan Mason struggle. But a day after the game, Kyle Shanahan said, "We didn't want Christian McCaffrey to go too many series in a row. Once we got into that fourth quarter, though, we were not taking him out. That was a close game there in the fourth quarter. And then yesterday, November 13th, Kyle Shanahan was asked about all the snaps that he played, and McCaffrey only missed 4 snaps in the first half. And Shanahan said it felt like Christian McCaffrey was out for 100 plays in the first half, but it was only like 4 or 5. That gives you insight into how Kyle Shanahan feels about Christian McCaffrey. It's absence makes the heart grow fonder times 100. He thought he was out for 100 plays. He said it felt like he was out for 100 plays, which incredible because of course they didn't come near 100 plays in the first half. But yeah, that kind of shows you how Kyle Shanahan views Christian McCaffrey. It's panic when he's not out there. It's like a snap on the moon when he's not, one snap on, what do they say? One football snap on Earth is 27 snaps on the moon, something like that. He's empty when McCaffrey's not out there. He's incomplete. He is like Jerry Maguire without Renee Zellweger's character. Also from Kyle Shanahan on November 10th, he was asked about Jawan Jennings, and Shanahan said it was huge for the offense to get Jawan Jennings back. He's been a stud all year and his whole career here. This was his first time playing X position, which he'll be doing for the rest of the year. And that's pretty big. Jawan Jennings, 91% of snaps played in Week 10, 11 targets, caught 7 of them for 93 yards. That's pretty good. He's going to see a lot of usage, and he will probably be a top 24, maybe even better, maybe like top 18. Top 18 sounds rich, doesn't it? Top 24 wide receiver for the rest of the year. Bengals rookie receiver Jermaine Burton was held out of Cincinnati's Week 9 game as a disciplinary measure. We talked about that on the podcast last week. With T. Higgins out, Zach Taylor had built this game plan that heavily involved Jermaine Burton, and then Burton's off-field issues struck again and caused Taylor to bench him. In Week 10, T. Higgins was out again. Jermaine Burton worked his way back into Zach Taylor's good graces and ended up playing on a season-high 48% of snaps. Now, he only finished with 1 catch for 11 yards, but he did see 5 targets and some shots down the field. And then after Week 10's game against the Ravens, Zach Taylor had some nice things to say about Jermaine Burton, saying that he continues to progress well, thought his attention to detail during the week. We had him in on a lot of stuff. He did a great job handling all of it. I like his attitude and enthusiasm. He didn't get a lot of opportunities come his way, but we'll keep progressing him in the system. Also said he's remorseful for what happened. He gave us his best this week, brought a lot of energy. You could see how important it is to him. So again, we're going to continue to give him opportunities to progress. That is potentially very big with T. Higgins dealing with his quad injury on a he was called day-to-day by Zach Taylor weeks ago, of course. How much of that is the injury? How much of that is T. Higgins knowing it would be bad if T. Higgins were to go out and injure himself. It's going to be much, much harder to get the big contract that he wants next year. This is probably it with him for the Bengals. So why push it if you're not 100%, right? Don't go out there and play 90%. We saw what happened with, Brandon Ayuk got paid, but we see like these, any play, any Sunday, that could be it. So T. Higgins wants the bag, doesn't want to jeopardize that, and it would just be smart to not play unless you're 1,000%. And so if he's out a while, Jermaine Burton might get some opportunities there. We know he has the skill set, just has to stay the course. Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski was asked whether he envisions more of a 1-2 punch in the backfield with Jerome Ford getting healthier. Stefanski said, quote, "That's always our goal, is to play multiple guys back there, but it's really based on game flow," end quote. Green Bay Packers opened up Marshawn Lloyd's 21-day practice window. Head coach Matt LaFleur said, obviously, he's got a skill set that we really liked, his ability to do some things out of the backfield as well as in the backfield. So we're just going to take it one day at a time with him. And if he can contribute, great. If not, then obviously we've got a lot of confidence in those other guys, end quote. So that is kind of saying Marshawn Lloyd, RB2. And if he's not available, okay, those other guys will do well enough. We have confidence in them. But they've talked about this skill set Marshawn Lloyd has, and they'd really love to see it. They couldn't wait to see it, and we haven't gotten a chance because he keeps getting injured. Marshawn, my guy, need you to stay healthy. Okay, last one from the Discord. Houston Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans said that the thing that has stood out about John Mechie III is his progression these past few weeks, seeing him play with more speed, jumping off the football, running his routes, being more decisive with his route running, and beating man coverage with his feet. He took coaching points to the field and showed up and made plays. I am really proud of his improvement. Nice little breakout game for John Mechie III this past week with Nico Collins out. And that's it. That does it for us here. We're about to be out. But first, do all the nice things, man. Like and comment and subscribe, and we'll all be floating on air, brother. How about that? What a world that'll be, huh? Just big smiles on everybody's faces. Everybody's feeling good. Everyone's getting their info from the Coach Speak Index. Just pumping it out. Let's go. Got a few weeks left in this fantasy season. Let's make them count, baby. Sarah, take us out.